Hi everyone, welcome to Eve Math Tutoring. Today's lesson is on adding fractions. Let's start off with a simple example. Let's start off with 1 over 2 plus 3 over 5. Now when you're adding fractions, the bottom number has to be the same. So I wouldn't go ahead and add these numbers and then add these numbers. That would be incorrect. Okay, so I can only add two fractions if I have the same number on the bottom. In order to find that number, I'm going to find the lowest common multiple of the numbers 2 and 5. So in order to do that, what I have to do is list the multiples of the number 2. So the first multiple of the number 2 is 2 times 1, which is 2. The second one is 2 times 2, which is 4. 2 times 3, which is 6. 2 times 4, which is 8. And 2 times 5, which is 10. And then you can keep listing as many as you like. Okay, maybe 2 times 6, which is 12, etc. Now 5, the first multiple is 5. 5 times 1, which is 5. 5 times 2, which is 10. 5 times 3, which is 15. However, at this point I see that I have the same multiple right there, so that's actually my lowest common multiple. Okay, I could keep going. 5 times 4, which is 20. So at this point, you list as many multiples as you like, but you do have to start off with the smallest multiple. So you're always going to do the number multiplied by 1, the number multiplied by 2, the number multiplied by 3, the number multiplied by 4, etc. and list in that order. And then once you get a common, you're going to list the numbers for the first number. When you get to the second one, you're going to list a whole bunch of numbers, and as soon as you get a number that you see on the top list, you know you have your lowest common multiple. So now what I have to do is change this number 2 to the number 10. So in order to do that, I multiply it by 5. And whenever I do the bottom of a fraction, I have to do the same thing to the top in order not to change the fraction. So I'm just writing it in a different format. Now over here, how do I make 5 into 10? Well, I multiply it by 2. Okay, so this becomes 6 over 10. Now that I have the same numbers on the bottom, I can go ahead and add these fractions. So 5 plus 6 is 11, and 10 remains on the bottom. So now that I have an improper fraction, I have to figure out how many times does 10 go into 11? Well, once, and what's left over? 1 over 10. So at that point, that would be my reduced answer. Let's try another example. Let's try 1 over 3 plus 1 over 4. So in this case, again, the lowest common multiple of the numbers 3 and 4. So 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, and 3 times 5 is 15. This one, 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16. And notice the number 12 is common, the lowest common multiple. Okay. So what I want to do now is change the number 3 to 12. So to do that, I have to multiply it by 4. Whatever I do to the bottom of the fraction, I have to do the same thing to the top. And over here, how do I change 4 to 12? It becomes 3 multiplied by 3, and then I get 3 over 12. So I have to do, whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the same to the top. So I'm just rewriting these fractions in a different form. Okay, so now, now that we have the same numbers on the bottom, we can go ahead and add the top numbers. So we get 7 over 12. And at this point, we see that we have a regular fraction. The top number is smaller than the bottom. And we see that there's nothing we can divide 7 and 12 by other than the number 1 that would change. So there's no other number besides 1 that divides into both 7 and 12. So that means this answer is fully reduced. Okay. Let's try another example. Let's try 2 over 6 plus 1 over 3. Now in this case, sometimes you might be able to just look at the question and notice that you only need to change one of the fractions in order to make the bottom numbers the same. So you can go ahead and find the lowest common multiple, or you can notice, wait a minute, if I multiply 3 by 2, And whenever I do the bottom of the fraction, I do the same thing to the top. So the first one, I rewrite it here. The second one, if I multiply 3 by 2, it becomes 6. So all I have to do is change the second fraction. And now I have the same number on the bottom. Okay, so in this case, because 3 is actually, I can multiply 3 by 2 to get 6. 3 is a factor of 6. So in this situation, if one of the numbers is a factor, like divides evenly into the other number, you only need to change one fraction in order to get the bottom's denominators to be the same number. Okay, so in this case, we would go ahead and add them, and we get 4 over 6. And at that point, you can see that the greatest common factor, the number that divides both into 4 and 6, is number 2, so you can go ahead and reduce it, and you would get your answer like that. Okay, so that's another example. What if we had 5 over 4 plus 3 over 9? Now in this case, neither of these numbers are multiples of each other, so I have to find the lowest common multiple of these two numbers. So for 4, I list some multiples first. So I do 4 times 1, which is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 6 is 24, 4 times 7 is 28. Okay, maybe we can list a few more. Let's move this down. Four times, where are we at here? 4 times 6, which is 24, 4 times 7, which is 28, 4 times 8, which is 32, 4 times 9, which is 36. We can list some multiples for the number 9. 9 times 1 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18, 9 times 3 is 27, 9 times 4 is 36. We arrive at our lowest common multiple. So in this case, it's the two numbers multiplied by each other, right? So in that case, so now how do I get 4 to be 36? Well, I multiply it by 9. Whenever I do the top, I do the bottom, I do the same thing to the top. So I get 5 times, let me just see here, sorry. So we have to multiply. Okay, so this here becomes 45, and this here becomes 36. Then this here, 9 times 4 is going to give us 36, and then 3 times 4 is going to give us 12. Now at this point we get 57 over 36. Now we see that the top number is actually, we multiplied this one top and bottom by 4. Sorry about that. Okay, so this one, we multiply the bottom and the top by 9 because 4 times 9 will give me 36, which is my lowest common multiple. And over here, 3 times, we multiply 9 by 4 to get 36, and then we multiply the top by 4 as well, we get 12. Okay, so we don't actually change each fraction, we're just writing them in a different form. Now that we have the same number on the bottom, we can go ahead and add the top numbers. So we got 57. Now we think of how many times is 36 going to 57? Well, approximately once. And what's left over? Well, what's left over is 57 minus 36, which is 21. Okay? Okay. Now, at this point, I want to see if I can reduce this fraction any further. So I have to think of, is there a number that goes in evenly into the numbers 21 and 36? So the number 2 does not go evenly into 21. However, the number 3 does. So just starting from smallest numbers, like obviously you want a number besides number 1. So start off with 2. Then you can think of 3. 3 goes into 21 7 times. However, does 3 go evenly into 36? And the answer is yes, it does. It goes in 12 times. So we can reduce this. what we can do is divide the top and the bottom of this fraction by 3. And at that point, we would get 7 over 12, and that would be our final answer. Okay, so that would be a fully reduced answer. Okay, so we can do a few more examples. Let's try another one where we have, let's try 2 over 5 plus 3 over 10. Now over here again, you notice that 5 is a factor of 10. So what you can do is just change 5. How do we make 5 into 10? We multiply it by 2. Whenever I do the bottom of this fraction, I'm going to do the same thing to the top. So I get 4 over 10 plus 3 over 10. Okay? Now at this point, you go ahead and add, and you get 7 over 10. There is no number that would divide both 7 and 10 other than the number 1. Therefore, this is your final answer. Okay, now what if we're dealing with mixed fractions? So you want to add 2 mixed fractions. Now, first, when you're adding mixed fractions, what you are allowed to do is you go ahead and add the 2 whole numbers, and then you add the fractions. So in this case, however, when you are adding these fractions, they still have to have the same denominator on the bottom. So what I have to do is rewrite the fractions so that the denominators are the same. Okay, so I have to figure out what my lowest common multiple is. So in this case, the smallest number that I can make common to both these would be, here, we can just try it over here. So we can list the numbers 2 and 5, and we can write some multiples of the number, each number. And right off the bat, we see that 10 is the lowest common multiple. Okay, so what you're going to do is multiply this one, bottom and top, by 5. What you're going to do is multiply this one, bottom and top, by 2. And that is because we want the bottom to be 10. And whatever we do to the bottom of the fraction, we have to do the same thing to the top. Okay, so we're not actually changing the fractions, we're rewriting the fractions. Now that we have the fractions with the same denominator, we can go ahead and add these up. So what you can do is you actually add up the whole numbers, so 2 plus 3 is 5, and then you add the fractions. So 5 plus 8 is 13 over the number 10. So using the same rules for the fractions. Okay. Now at this point, you see that you have an improper fraction. So if I rewrote this improper fraction as a mixed fraction, 10 goes into 13 once, and I'm left with 3 as a remainder over 10. So that's what 13 over 10 would be as an improper fraction. So what I actually do is, when I combine these two, I can add this 1 to this whole number 6, and then I would just write the fraction down. Okay? So this here is just 13 over 10 is equal to 1 3/10 as an improper fraction. Okay, so this is how you would solve this type of question with mixed fractions. We can try another example. Say we have 3.5 plus 2 3/4. Okay, this is the fraction we're looking at. Now over here we notice that 2 is a factor of 4, so I only need to change this fraction, this number, to make it the same as this. So what I can do is I can multiply 2 by 2 to get 4, and whenever I do the bottom of the fraction, I have to do the same thing to the top. So now I get 3 2/4. I rewrite this fraction in this form, and now I have the same number on the bottom of both my fractions, which means I can go ahead and add these up. So I add up the mixed numbers first, and then I add the fraction. And again, over here, we see that we have a improper fraction. So 5 over 4 is equal to 1 1/4. as a 5, 4 goes into 5 once, and you're left with 1 over 4. So this is written as a mixed form, and this is improper. So this 1 actually can be added here, and you can get 1 over 4 as the fraction part. So you would rewrite this in this format. Okay? So that's how you add fractions. I hope you understood the lesson. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at evemathtutoring@outlook.com, or you can post questions on the channel page as well, and I can address those. If there are any other types of questions that you would like a video on, additional adding fractions, different types of questions, please feel free to email me and let me know, or just ask on my channel, and I will go ahead and post another lesson on adding fractions. So I hope that helped you understand how to add fractions, and hope to see you soon.